explode, huh? Fuck it, I thought I'm sold. I strode on down the road in C-walk mode to the wizard I'm told. But hold up, this road fuck with twists and turns. I'm having no luck as my vanilla blunt burns. I'm seeing trees with faces, bushes that walk, and as far as I can see, nobody drawn in chalk. And the sky's bright green, sometimes it's kinda pink. I'ma twist another blunt here, sit down and think. How the fuck, what the fuck, who the fuck in when? What the fuck I'm doing here, I would've figured depends. Then again, I gotta get the fuck home before long, cause the first of the month is coming on. I'm gone. Let me spark my shit right quick, I'm out of here.
Yo, homie, let me get a hit of that blunt.
Fuck yeah, wait a minute, who said that? Look around everywhere, and I heard somebody singing over there, so clear, he went.
I don't need a brain, don't need anything. I just want somebody to smoke with.
Who said that? Who said that?
Stuck up on this thing with no fucking games. I just want somebody to smoke with.
Who said that?
Well, I said that.
Look at this shit. I'm talking to a scarecrow stuck on a stick, asking me for a hit right quick. Shit, all I got is Bobby Brown. I can't front, but the wizard got's all you want. You can smoke up his tundra. They say it's the thunder, and he could have King Kong smoked under the wonder. I'm going there now and getting me some, and plus the wizard gonna get my ass home. He's on.
It would be the shit, big homie, if I could walk with you and talk with you and get up on a fat bag or two. Cause I've been hanging from this pole for so long and smoking on homegrown, my headache is full blown. I ain't the smartest scarecrow with a hat, but if you lift that little latch and I go crash into a pumpkin patch. Don't leave me hanging, big homie, just pull the lever so we can just get to walking the yellow alley together. Cause I don't need a brain, don't need anything. I just want somebody to smoke with.
And I'm with that, and I'm with that, man, it ain't no thing. We can smoke the cans, but you gotta put something on it.
And I'm with that, you know I'm with that.
I helped set his ass free, he slipped off, then his fucking leg ripped off, and he was like,
don't mind that shit, dog, it ain't nothing at all. Just a little bit of stuff in that straw.
hey Paul, I mean Scarecrow, yo.
Don't ask if I ever tried smoking myself, no.
I only thought with the hey, okay. Anyway, let's get you some real shit down the yellow brick alley.
We don't need a brain, don't need anything. We just need some homies to smoke with.
And I'm with that, and I'm with that.
We don't need a brain, don't need anything. We just need some homies to smoke with.
And I'm with that, and I'm with that.
We don't need a brain, don't need anything. We just need some homies to smoke with.
And I'm with that, and I'm with that.
We don't need a brain, don't need anything. We just need some homies to smoke with.
And I'm with that, and I'm with that.
We don't need a brain, don't need anything. We just need some homies to smoke with. And I'm with that, you know I'm with that. We don't need a brain, don't need anything. We just need some homies to smoke with. We don't need nothing, we don't need nothing. We don't need a brain, don't need anything. We just need some homies to smoke with. Talk about my homies, homies. We don't need a brain, don't need anything. We just need some homies to smoke with. Homies to smoke with.
There we go.
There we go. Now, how's it going?
Good, man. Kicking the old school, Wizard of the Hood.
Yeah, keep it old school.
I cannot be a homie to smoke with, but I have saved something very special for this occasion. And I'll show it to you right now.
Oh, snap.
Uh-huh.
That's
The
a good one.
firecracker. Firework Fago. I hope this
Do you
doesn't.
like yours ice cold or kind of?
This one's cold. This one's cold. When I'm at conventions, a lot of times, normally I'm a rock and rye guy. Rock and rye is like my jam.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go out of my 40s with a bang.
Oh, there you go.
Easy. So I've been sitting on this one, knowing that we were going to eventually do this, and hopefully this won't explode on me. Oh yeah. So thanks for having me on, man. It's good to chop it up.
Now,
Cheers, everybody. Don't die, boss. It's early.
was it good?
I said, don't die. Yeah, the firework Fago is so good. It's like it tastes like a bomb pop.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just so good. And I've been sitting on this one. I knew we were going to talk. We've been talking about this for a while. So I'm gonna have one more hit of this.
Bomb pop.
Oh, dude, it's so good.
I'm a big fan of the candy apple and cotton candy.
Yeah. Well, I grew up just outside Detroit, and aging myself, keeping with the theme here, me and my dude used to ride up to the grocery store, and we'd each buy a can of Fago for 19 cents. And then you get a candy bar for like 50 cents. So for like $1.50 between the two of us, we each get a candy bar, get a Fago and just hang out and kick it, right? Now it's like I go to the gas station, it's like a pack of M&Ms, it's like $2 or $3. I'm like, but yeah, right. So I got to remember, but yeah, back in the day, the cans of Fago, 19 cents.
That's crazy.
That's where it was
at. $1.39 for the 20 ounce or 24 ounce, whatever they are. Around here anyway.
3 liter, the 3 liter.
Yeah, those are $1 here. It's weird how the 3 liters are $1, but the 20 ounces are $1.69 or something.
Yeah.
But now starting back at the beginning, who were your inspirations, like as a comic writers?
Oh gosh, as a comic writer, the first 3
was it Chris? What's his?
Yeah. I didn't start reading comics till I was a teenager. I knew of comics, I saw them around and stuff like that, and but my first 3 comics I read as a teenager that really got me into the game were, in this order, Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. I'm trying to think which one was next. Watchmen by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, and The Crow by James O'Barr. And I'll tell you what, for those to be like the first 3 graphic novels or first 3 comics I read to really get me involved in this medium, I mean, that was just a masterclass, right? So obviously, those were huge influences on me. Read a lot of stuff by Alan Moore. I love the way he approached the medium, and again, you can be talking on process. I'll talk all night just about process, but the way he would juxtapose words and pictures and stuff like that, he was a real big one. But truthfully, a lot of my inspirations as a writer came from prose writers, Edgar Allan Poe, Ray Bradbury, the work of Lovecraft, Harlan Ellison, Stephen King, Jules Verne, even stuff like that. That was really.
Were you a fan of Chris Claremont's
X-Men? Yeah, after I read those first 3 comics, I started going in and like devouring all this different stuff. I have a lot of respect for Claremont's run on X-Men. Oh, thank you for the birthday wishes. Hello. Sorry, just saw the chat. I have a lot of respect for Claremont's X-Men, and I've read a decent amount of it. I've never been a huge superhero guy, though, to be honest with you. I'd be BSing you if I told you I was a big superhero kid, because I wasn't. But I really respected his long form storytelling and things like that, right? He was one of the main people that wrote a very, 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 very long story arc. And the other writer, as a comic writer, who I really got into was Peter David's run on the Incredible Hulk. And I know there's people out there that aren't familiar with comics, or maybe aren't familiar with Peter David's work. They think, oh, well, the Hulk, well, that sounds kind of lame. Right. Dude, Peter David's run on the Hulk is one of the best runs of any comic book ever written, ever. Fantastic. And the nuance he brought to it, and how he could tell such a compelling 10-year story arc about this this guy that turns into this monster and stuff like that. I mean, just incredible. But Claremont was another guy like Peter David. He just had this super long celebrated run of a book. So yeah, I got a lot of love for Claremont, even if it wasn't like a go-to book for me.
Right. What made you get into wanting to write comics?
I always joke that it's only half a joke, that being a writer is not a job, it's a curse, right? Because like being a writer is like having homework every day for the rest of your life, you know. Right. But it was just one of those things that ever since I was young, I've always been a voracious reader, and I knew that I was going to be a writer. It's just I could tell you the exact geographic location of where I was when I knew this is what I was put in the universe to do. I was put in the universe to do this. But that being said, I didn't really get into the idea of writing comic books until I wrote a book. I don't know if I have it here on my desk or not. I don't think I do. Called Right or Wrong: A Writer's Guide to Creating Comics. It talks about my whole journey as a comic book writer. But I was a metal kid, heavy metal kid. What's good, man? What's going on? But I was also a skater kid. And the local skate shop, I went to the local skate shop one time, and he had this huge rack set up full of comic books. Not just like a spinner rack, like shelves, like magazine racks.
Display, right?
It was dope. And I was like, I really got interested in that idea because being such a voracious reader, I was like, if I can find something I like, I'll have new reading material every month. How cool is that? And I loved long-term storytelling, right? I that was always been a thing, that appealed to me. So then upon discovering that, like I said, the first 3 graphic novels I read were Watchmen, or Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen, and The Crow. Then that really showed me different facets of like the medium. Reading Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller, it was like, whoa, here they're taking Batman, who I mainly knew from like the Tim Burton movies or the 60s TV show. And the idea that you can take this established character and do a new spin on it, like this old grizzled version of him. The Crow, James O'Barr, man, he bleeds on the page. A lot of people are familiar with the movie The Crow. I cannot recommend enough that people check out the graphic novel The Crow by James O'Barr. He bleeds on the page, and the passion and the pathos it just wrecks you when you read it. You just feel it, and it just blew me away. And then Watchmen was the technical aspect of the writing and how he juxtaposes the words and the pictures and things like that. And I've always loved art as well. I was like a really good artist in first grade. I just never got any better, right? But then seeing how you could tell stories in this medium, and very early on, I kind of looked at it like these are like movies with no budget, which isn't fair to our artistic friends, but just in theory, there was no turning back. People ask me all the time, like, "Oh, you write a normal book?" I do short stories at the end of a lot of my graphic novels and things like that, just to show I can write prose. But to me, collaborating with artists and telling stories in the comic book medium, it's where the magic happens, right? There's just nothing else like it. It's just where the magic happens, and that was where the universe put me here to do, I guess. You
collaborated with your favorite writer yet?
My favorite writer? I've done limited collaborations with other writers. I've worked with like Ron Chaney on the adaptation of London After Midnight. We just announced earlier this month I'm doing a writing collaboration with Josh Mallerman, who wrote Bird Box. And he's one of my favorite writers. So to get to work with Josh Mallerman and work on a thing together is cool. Most of the collaboration comes in though from an artistic side. I'm a pretty driven person. I know what I want to, I know the story I want to tell. And I like to hand off the reins to other artists to then help me bring it to life and have them interpret it that way. I got to talk to Alan Moore once. That was pretty cool. He was one of my favorites. And I got to meet Frank Miller. James O'Barr did a cover to Tales of Mystery. So I've got to work with some of the people that brought me into the game, or at least talk to them, which is neat. But as far as collaborating with other writers, it gets tricky, you know. But that's not to say it can't be done when you're adapting their work.
Now, is there still anybody you want to work with now that you haven't? Like anybody that stands out amongst the others?
With my series Tales of Mystery, I always try to collaborate with like a dream artist of mine for the covers, at least. So I've got a list over here that no one can see of like the artists I want to do covers to some of the remaining volumes of that series. So I've got a list, but I mean, I've worked with Eric Powell. I've worked with Ben Templesmith. I got to work with Jason Pearson, who was a buddy of mine before he passed. Body Bags was another comic that changed my life. And getting Jason Pearson to do a cover to Tales of Mystery was incredible. James O'Barr doing a cover, like I said. Riley Rossmo. It's been really cool. Do I got a couple artists on my list that I would love to do something with? Absolutely. I would have loved to have got a cover from like Bernie Wrightson and Richard Corbin. They both passed away. But I got a list, a couple people still that I would like to jam with. But sequentially, working with people like Josh Ross, working with Les Garner, Austin McKinley. Gosh, I mean, the artists I work with right now, it's like I couldn't ask for a better crew of creative. Sally Scott, you know, the list goes on and on. The people I'm getting to work with right now, I'm very fortunate to be 22 years into my career and still be so excited about working with such amazing artists and to get the opportunity to work with such amazing artists. So
now, when you first started completing stuff and putting it in people's hands, where was I going with that? How did that process go? Like with the first person that gave you a chance, or as you would say, a chance, I guess. But
yeah, I started by self-publishing, right? Like I said, I'm a metal guy, heavy metal guy, but I sometimes say I'm too punk rock for my own good. I wanted to be able to do things on my own terms in the way that I felt would best represent the work. So I started self-publishing. I started self-publishing my first series, Nightmare World, as an online comic. Eventually, we started doing like small print-on-demand comics and things like that. And then started doing conventions. You know, the first two conventions I did were in Chicago and Pittsburgh. And I'll tell you, sitting at a table, you know, you have your little self-published books out there and stuff like that, right? And it was me and Josh Ross. We were in Pittsburgh. And he kind of tells a version of this in his book called Left Turns. But we're sitting at the table, and we're both sitting there. And people are walking by. Right at a convention, right? Like Astronomicon or something. People are walking by. And I'm looking at the table, and I see his art, and I see the books. And I'm thinking, man, this is high-quality stuff. Which I know sounds terrible because I was involved with it. But objectively, it's like I knew what we had was special. I knew this was very high-quality stuff. And if people just picked it up and looked at it, give it a chance, they'd be into it, right?
oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I looked over at Josh, who's very quiet. I looked at him and I said, no one will love our babies like we will. I turned and I stood up. And as people would walk by and kind of glance and say, hey, how are you? I said, you know, if anything looks interesting, feel free to check it out. And I joke, I've never stopped talking about my work since then. You know, I'm very much a hand seller, but I'm not a carnival barker, right? If people stop at a table I'm at and look at my work, I'll say, hey, you know, I can tell you a bit about this if you'd like. But that's been my gear ever since. Is
that how like your pose came in to like say you do?
Right. So the famous Dirk Manning picture, like the pose or like cover in the face, that came about because branding, right? I knew I needed some sort of logo to people to identify with my work. But what I didn't want was I didn't want to just be the Nightmare World guy. I didn't want to just be the Tales of Mystery guy. Fast forwarding, I just didn't want to be the Haunted Highlands guy, right? I wanted a logo that would encapsulate my brand for doing all kinds of different books. And I was talking to Jim Reddington about this, who was a letterer I worked with for bulk of my career. And I was like, I need some sort of logo or something. He's like, well, you're an author, we're talking about he's an author, just an author picture, but I don't like being on camera. I don't like pictures taken of myself. I have a face of a writer. And I told him, I said, I don't want to use like an author picture either, because like, I'm just not a comfortable person with cameras. And he said, I've got just the idea. And he pitched me the idea for the top hat and the scarf and all that, and like look mysterious and look ageless, right?
Yeah.
And that became it. Well, back in the days like MySpace and stuff like that, for a long time, no one knew what I looked like. And then I started doing conventions, and I dressed like I do now, black suit. I'm dressed for work, and people want to get their picture taken with me. And so ever since some of the first people taking pictures with me, so they said, well, no, you got to hide your face because no one knows what you look like. So that became this, or that became this, and that became like the gimmick ever since, is that occasionally people try to sneak a picture of me, and like my readers would like get mad and like call them out and stuff like that and say, oh, take that down. No one's allowed to know what Dirk looks like. So really they built that image for me. And then as time has gone on, now obviously I do interviews like this, but even my earliest interviews, you wouldn't see my face, right? I'd be like covered up somehow, like behind books or my back turned. Crazy.
Yeah, every time I show people your stuff, and they're like, well, what's up with him always covering his face? And
Right, because I'm hideous. No, it's part of the it's become part of the thing. It's like, well, and here's the other thing too. I mean, in full disclosure, right? Now you can see the book, right? If I could talk to you like this the whole time, just with the book, I would do this in a second. But it's also a way to show off the book, promote the book, but also it's just because I just don't like having my picture taken. I'm just not a very photogenic person. But it got to the point doing interviews and stuff like this, I realized that, it's going to take away from what I'm doing if I'm doing interviews hidden.
Yeah.
And, so I broke down and started appearing on camera more and stuff like that. And I just saw in the comments, we're going to bang on his castle door. That's right. Go to Alan Moore's house, knock on his door. People have done it. But so that's where that all came from. To this day, still, I keep the Dirk Manning picture as my logo because that's how people know me. And again, 22 years, I've put out over 20 graphic novels. But some people, their favorites Nightmare World. Some people, their favorites Twisted Haunted Highlands. Some people, their favorites Homestead. Some people's Tales of Mystery, Love Stories About Death, Cthulhu Jr. Some people know me from Right or Wrong, my book on writing comics. Whatever your favorite Dirk Manning stuff is, or again, Butts and Seats with Tony Schiavone or Arn Anderson, whatever your favorite thing of mine is, Dirk Manning is still the brand. Yeah. There's people that know me from Hope that have never read my horror stuff, but they love Hope. But they still know that's a Dirk Manning book, and that's why. And then this is just that's the readers did that, and I've stuck with it ever since. And I've been with it for so long now. It's like, why break it?
Right.
But yeah, I've had people say like, I think he has like rotten teeth, or he's like deformed. I actually love that stuff. Part of me is like, no, that's not it. Like, oh, but I think it's funnier when people think that I have like tentacles for a face or something. It's like, yeah, believe what you want.
Now, Nightmare World was your first self-published?
My first, yeah. Nightmare World is the first series I ever wrote. And which
2003?
Started publishing it online 2003. Published an online comic, took it to print. I worked with a couple small publishers originally back in the day. But our first big push for this series, we got picked up by Image Comics, who was publishing a comic, another horror comic called The Walking Dead that you may have heard of. We published 3 volumes through Image and moved over to Devil's Due, where we finished the series with volume 4. We did a Kickstarter for that. And now the complete collection is available. The whole series is available in one big trade paperback for the first time through Source Point Press. But yeah, this is the first series I ever wrote, and I have never done a signing appearance or convention where I have not sold at least one Nightmare World 22 years later.
That's wild. Is that what's your biggest series that you put out?
Tales of Mystery would be the biggest. And honestly, it's my favorite series I write. We've done 5 volumes so far. Volume 6 is coming out later this year. It's about a magician who, well, let me back up. The setup on the series is hell invades Earth for 3 days. There's monsters, demons, all that stuff. And after 3 days, they're just gone. And this series focuses on Mystery, who's a magician who knows there's still monsters and demons left. And that 3-day invasion is just the first wave of what's actually coming next. Very horror noir series. It's actually a sequel to Nightmare World. This year, volume 6 will be coming out on Kickstarter with Austin McKinley, called The Amnesiac Angel. That will forever, I think, be the biggest series I write. It's my favorite series I write. No offense to anything else. Again, everyone's has different favorites. Yeah, see there, Mystery, right? Yeah, he's my guy. But that will be, to me, that is my definitive series that I write. But I say that knowing some people really loved Homestead. Some people really love Hope. Love Haunted Highons. I love all my babies. But Mystery is like the series I write for me more than any other series, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Now, for someone that don't know you, what would, obviously you'd want them to start at the beginning, but what would your go-to suggestion for them to start with?
That's a great question. And I don't know if I would necessarily tell people to start at the beginning. I would tell people to look at my series of work, which again, you can go to dirkmanning.com and see my whole bibliography, right? But I would say what speaks to you. If you want kind of like a fun all ages type read, The Adventures of Cthulhu Jr. and Friends. If you want more like an adult Scooby-Doo stoner comedy, Twisted Haunted Highons. If you want like a dramatic book with a woman lead character, or like a superhero style book, Hope. If you want like one really dark horror noir series, Tales of Mystery. You want a Native American infused werewolf western, Homestead. Maybe you like Tony Butts and Seats, the Tony Schiavone story if you're into professional wrestling. If you want a horror anthology series where 52 different stories weave into one, Nightmare World. You want to write your own comics? Right or wrong. You want a bunch of cool standalone love-infused horror stories or horror-infused love stories? Love stories about death, right? So it really depends on what you like. But that being said, no, anything you read is going to read like a Dirk Manning book. It doesn't matter if I'm doing a wrestling biography with Arn Anderson, or I'm doing a book about writing comics, I'm doing a stoner comedy with Twisted. Doesn't matter what it is, it's still going to read like a Dirk Manning book, but just different flavors, different palettes, different sounds. But the quality level will still remain a strong 7.5 out of 10. The art's always at least 10. The art's 10 out of 10. The writing, like 7.5.
How did that come about? Doing that gig with Twisted for Twisted Highons.
Oh my gosh! So before I started writing comics, I did music journalism for about 10 years, and I love music journalism. I met some of the most important people in my life through music and through my music journalism. And And one of the bands I worked with back then was Insane Clown Posse. So I knew who Twisted were before they were Twisted. I knew them even as House of Crazies. I then knew they got picked up by ICP, got rebranded as Twisted. So put a pin in that. Well, no, we'll take the pin out, then we'll put it back in. I finally got to interview Mike Patton, who is my all-time favorite musician, singer, a true inspiration of mine for all the variety of work he does. And after I got to do an in-person interview with Mike Patton, who normally never did interviews, and I've got I'll show you. Again, I don't like pictures of myself, but this is a picture I keep in my office as a reminder. There's me and Mike Patton. From Faith No More, Mr. Bungle, things like that.
That's awesome.
This night, I interviewed Mike Patton in person. It's a whole crazy story how that happened. They thought I was one of the roadies. And so I ended up unloading gear with him and stuff like that I got to talk to him about his record label. But anyway, after the interview, I was like, where do I go from here? And I only got into music journalism to keep my hand moving. What I really wanted to do was write comics. So I jumped out of music journalism and moved on to writing comic books and started with Nightmare World and blah, blah, blah. Years later, Gary Reed, who is a very, very dear friend of mine and a mentor to me, he published my book, Right or Wrong. Right or Wrong was a prose book, not a comic, and I took it to his publisher, Caliber. And it's hard for me to talk about it. I apologize because we lost Gary unexpectedly several years ago, and I talk about him and I still get choked up. But
You're good.
Gary, thank you. Gary came to me and he goes, hey, I know this band. There's this band that wants to do a comic, and I know you used to do music journalism, and I think you'd be the perfect person to adapt their idea for a story into a comic book. And he goes, but I gotta warn you, he goes, it's not normally the type of music I think you listen to. He goes, I know you're like a heavy metal guy. And I said, who's the band? He said, they're called Twisted. And I just laughed because, again, I worked with ICP back in the day. I knew they were. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Let's set this up. So Gary was my liaison to George Valakis, who's Twisted's manager, and they sent me this idea for the story they wanted to do for a comic.
Shout out to George.
George is the best, man. I miss
George
George.
is awesome.
George is great. I haven't seen George in a hot minute. I'm looking forward to seeing him again at Astronomicon. He's just such a great dude, man. Great dude. Deserves all the success in the world. Earns all the success in the world.
Oh, for sure.
So Gary was my liaison to George, and George sent the script to Gary, this idea that Paul had for a comic and stuff like that. What up? And I was getting ready to turn this idea from Paul into this comic script. And and then Gary died of a heart attack out of the blue. Saw him like a week or two beforehand, gone. I was like, what do we do? So I get old Georgia directly, went up to Magic Ninja headquarters, and we sat down and I said, look, this is some really cool stuff here. I really believe there's potential to still do this. I would like to still do the book. And George didn't know me from Adam, right? He just knew I was Gary's guy. And he said, okay. We weren't sure what was going to happen with Caliber at that time because Caliber, was as far as we knew was Gary, and Caliber has gone on since.
Yeah.
But I knew one of the things we needed with Twisted being this national touring band was national distribution. I had my eyes on another publisher for a while called SourcePoint Press. Travis McIntyre, Josh Warner were very good friends of mine. And they too were proteges of Gary Reed. And I went to Travis and Josh and I said, look, I have this opportunity. There's a really cool book that could really help SourcePoint, and it'd be really cool for the band. But this is something that's going to need national distribution, right? I said, this is going to need national distribution to make this work. And they didn't have it yet because they were still very underground. But I said, if you can promise me this book would get national distribution, I'll bring this book to you. You're a Michigan publisher. Twisted's a Michigan band. We're all Michigan adjacent, Detroit adjacent people. Doesn't work out. The universe sometimes provides when you let it. And they happened to stumble to a meeting with Diamond Comics, who agreed to give them national distribution. And as a result, one of the first 3 titles their first month they ever put out was a Haunted High Ends one-shot. And there it was. We loved working together. We dedicated the issue to Gary. And George gave me one of the biggest compliments I've ever gotten as a writer. He told me, he said that Twisted is very protective of their brand. They're very protective of everything you do with good reason, right? They're like me. They have a very singular vision for what they want to do, and they want to make sure it's just right. But he said, you're one of the only people I've ever met. And if you know, he's like, and I mean ever. He goes, that they trust you to do what you're doing.
That's awesome.
And that was awesome. And we went on to do then the next miniseries, The Darkness Rises, with Maria Pescosta, Alessandro De Fornassari. That went really well. We got nominated for 3 Ringo Awards, Best Humor Comic, Best Illustrator, Best Colorist. We went on to do a second volume called The Curse of the Green Book. Again, got nominated for Best Humor Comic.
And then 4 Ringos, wasn't it?
Yeah, 4 all in. 3 nominations on the first one, then another nomination on the second volume. So we got 4 Ringo Award nominations all in. You're exactly right, for Haunted Ions. Really cool opportunity. Got to go to the Ringo Award, stuff like that. We lost to Superman, and then we lost to Brubaker and Phillips. And Brubaker and Phillips are like who I would vote for, right? Like if it wasn't me. So I'm sorry, I lost that one on my original book, Paper Not Dead. The second time that we lost was to the book that won every award that year. So we literally lost to Superman, and then we lost to the book that won every major award that year.
The actual Superman.
yeah, legit Superman. But I'll tell you what, we were right next to him. So I'm really, really proud of Haunted High Ends. I have so much love for the book. And then the second biggest compliment I get in one of the other biggest comments, I'm not going to rank them, but one of the other biggest comments I always get is people who say, I really wasn't familiar with Twisted, or I wasn't really sure if I liked this book, but I feel like I now know Jamie and Paul. I know these characters, and I love this book from reading Haunted High Ends.
That's cool.
And it's so dope. It's such a cool thing because I have so much love for that book. I have so much fun writing it. And I have a lot of respect for Jamie and Paul and what they do. Their music. I love what they do. The fact that we could create this kind of alternate version of Twisted that's still very much like them. It's a blast, man. And having Ken Levin look at us and try to push forward getting a cartoon or something made and all these different things. It's been a really cool experience.
What's your favorite moment you had with Paul and Jamie and George and them?
I'll give you a real life one, and I'll give you one from the comic. The real life one was after George. Oh, thank you. I appreciate you. After George agreed that we're going to move it on the comic, I didn't know Jamie and Paul really that much at all. So I went to one of the shows they were doing at this club, and I was backstage, and Jamie shows up like, hey, all hyper and stuff like that. And then, gregarious and glad handling. And then poof, he's gone. Back to the play video games or whatever he's doing. I don't know, whatever. So I'm sitting backstage with Paul. And it was about an hour or so. And I'm just kind of like watching. I'm trying to like learn a little bit about the guys more and stuff like that. And Paul's just sitting there. An hour. Never says a word. And I'm just kind of sitting there. And like I go across the street and I got cookies, brought cookies back for Dustin and stuff like that. And I'm good, thank you. I'm like, is he pissed off at me? Like, I hardly know what's on. Comes for showtime. Jamie comes back in backstage. They walk out and they just tear it up. It's like an hour live performance. Just go, 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 whatever it is. They come back through stage. She was like, I'll see you later. Boom, boom. Get in. Paul goes, hey, man, it was real nice to meet you, man. Thanks so much. Off they go. I'm like,
what?
but that told me a lot about both of them, right? Jamie's like the outgoing one and the glad animal, and Paul was just like he's gotten that zone. He blew up, and then again, nice to meet you. And I've gotten to know the guys more since then, stuff like that, you know. So that was one. And the one in the comic is I got to write one of my all-time favorite jokes in The Darkness Rises. Well, the other, so Jamie and Paul are two of the main characters. Any of the main character is Felicia, the ghost. And there's a bit where this guy sees Felicia as a ghost, and Felicia likes him, and he likes her. And they're talking, and they're getting kind of amorous. And I wrote a line for Jamie where he says, "Is it necrophilia?" Something to the extent of, "Is it necrophilia if you have sex with a ghost?" And I'm like, that book got nominated for 3 Ringo Awards with a necrophilia joke in it. So it's stuff like that makes me laugh, right? You know, one other thing that was real fun with Twisted was doing one of the Astronomicons when I finally got to tell Twisted that I knew who they were as House of Crazies because I was working with ICP. They had no clue. And it was on a live panel about Haunted Highon. They had no clue that I knew them from back in the day. And I'm not cutting ICP when I say this, but when I was working with ICP, I was working with ICP.
Yeah. And it's strictly them, nothing else.
It was about them. It wasn't about anything else. But watching the look on Jamie and Paul's face when I told them the story I told you about Gary and stuff like that, they said, "Yeah, and here they in this band," and just their jaws dropping. Like, yeah, so I've known you guys. I've known of you guys for a long time, right? You know, and that was really fun too. So yeah, and then of course all the times Astronomicon again, being there on the ground floor as they built that show up to what it's become has been so amazing. I mean, and I'm there working, I'm there signing books, doing my thing.
It's awesome how big it's starting to become.
Oh my God. And again, so well, and again, huge shout out to George, Jamie, and Paul. Also, huge shout out to Mike. You know, Mike Winnegar does so much work on that show as well. And him and I, we've gone HO like brothers before. You know, I mean, we've mixed it up. But I have so much love for Mike. I always have time for Mike. I've shared hotel rooms with Mike, right? You know, I'd go to war for him. If he called me right now and said, you know, bring tape and a shovel, I'd be there.
Yeah.
He has done so much work to grow Astronomicon into becoming what it's become. And it's become more and more mainstream, which is very indicative of the work he has put into, and Twisted's put in, because their vision from day one is to make this a pop culture convention.
Yeah.
And I get it, because Twisted created the show. Everyone thinks, oh, it's a Juggalo thing or it's a Twisted thing. And yeah, the fam shows up and gets to hang out, and there's the concerts and stuff.
But it's more than that.
It's so much more than that now. I would argue it's more than that year one. But now, especially, good gravy. And people are just, you know, beating down the doors to get in. Last year, oh my goodness gracious. I mean, they had that place packed to the gills.
It wasn't big enough.
It wasn't. We were talking afterwards, and I said, look, guys, I do about 25 or so conventions a year. I'm going to tell you, you guys are going to outgrow this place. Well, that just ends up they demolished the whole building. We're at 2 venues now. The Twisted shut them down. So now we're going back to Yipsy, you know, to that great new venue there. But yes, that's exactly right. It's good energy. It's a good vibe. And again, I'm just going to be very real about this. I people initially in the early days say, oh, well, that's like a Twisted convention. You know, juggalos. And I'm like, are you so old now that you're afraid of like the music people?
Right.
Right. I'm like, are you like your parents where they made fun of you for being a goth or a punker or a metal kid or whatever? I'm like, come to the show, and anybody who's been at any Astronomicon will tell you, come one time. Come one time, and you'll be back every time.
Yep.
And that's proven to be the case time and time and time again. People go to that show and they're like, oh my God, the sense of family, the sense of community here, and the guest lineup, and then the concerts and everything. I've been honored to be part of every Astronomicon. It's like, to me, it's like one of the most important shows I do every year because of like that sense of community and that sense of family, and it's just, it's such a positive show and such a positive experience. I don't think there's ever been an Astronomicon where I haven't broken away to go get a signature from somebody. You know, whether it be get to meet Kevin Eastman, have him sign one of my old books, or probably catching up with Bonnie Aarons, who was in a horror movie I wrote years ago that got produced, or what have you. You know, it's just an amazing convention, and Mike and George and Jamie and Paul, they just deserve, and the people behind the scenes like Mark and Dustin, you know, Peppermint Mafia, they deserve so many props for making that such an amazing show that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's been voted one of the best shows in Metro Detroit for years. And
it's been Detroit's best Comic-Con, I think, hasn't it? The last few years?
Yeah, it's been like best convention like several years in a row. And Michigan has no shortage of great comic conventions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, you can go all the way up north to Traverse City. You got Cherry Capital Comic-Con. You got Grand Rapids Comic-Con. You got Monroe Comic-Con. I mean, you got so many good shows in Michigan. But Astronomicon is a beast unto itself, and it's an amazing experience. It's just a fantastic show. It's just great. Again, I could talk about that show all day. It's just one of my favorites.
Yeah, they're definitely my favorite music group.
Yeah. Oh, and that's the thing too with Twisted's new album coming out and stuff like that. And their last couple albums and things like that. No, I think people are seeing more and more what they're capable of, and now you see people like Jelly Roll busting through to the mainstream. It's like I was hanging out with Jelly Roll backstage at a Twisted show a couple of years back. We were first starting the comic, right? You know, or you got Tech 9, you know, Juggalo.
I remember when there wasn't even 10 people at this show.
Right, right, exactly. You know, my mom's like, you met Jelly Roll? I'm like, yeah, he's a really good dude. You're like, when did you meet him? Back in your music journalism days? I think like no, like 2 years ago at a show, like backstage hanging out. You know, but even with Twisted now, people are starting to see more and more of what they're capable of in the music they do, and they can do hip hop, they can do rock, they can do they can do everything. They're super, super talented, and I think as their library continues to grow and their convention continues to grow, and I mean it's a bummer about Cold Chamber. I mean, what's most important is Dez's health, obviously.
I know. I would have had a show on my birthday. I was excited for it, and then I seen it canceled. I was like, no.
Yeah, but, you know, health first, right? But
yeah.
But again, you know, them getting when they played with Static X and stuff like that, getting for those crowds and people realizing, oh my gosh, this is not what I thought it was. But yet it is. But it's more.
Yeah.
They're a fantastic.
I'm excited for their new album that they got. Zeus came in and worked on.
Yep. Rob Zombie Camp. Welcome to my funeral. Welcome to your funeral. Yeah. The stuff I've heard of that, again, incredible. And you can play that for people and they wouldn't know it's Twisted, which is an amazing compliment, but also like an amazing sign, like catch up.
Yeah.
Catch up. You know, do what? You don't remember Generation Nightmare? You don't remember those other stuff they were doing? I mean, they've been here the whole time. Overnight success, 20 years in the making.
Yeah.
You like me.
I'm with you on that, Dave. I believe that too.
Well, yeah, and I don't like to dwell on negative stuff, you know.
Right.
Even in my own career, there's people that I rode with hard for a long time that I'll probably never talk to again. It happens, right? It just happens. The best thing you can do is wish well for everybody. Try to be as kind and as graceful as you can, but also recognize that there's, I always say there's friends for a reason, friends for a season, and friends for a lifetime. And, ICP and Twisted, maybe they were friends for a season, maybe they're friends for a reason. But at the end of the day, they do them. Everyone just got to do their own thing, move forward, and just put the good in the universe that they can.
And this was the plan in the beginning, anyways, to do their own thing. So,
yeah,
that's everybody's plan, to eventually go on and do your own.
That's exactly it, and it hurt. You get egos involved, you get money involved, you get creative vision involved, but at the end of the day, I always talk about, when I do panels on writing and things like that, I always close out every panel I do when I talk about, being a writer, being a creative. I say, there's 3 rules you should follow. And the 3 rules are very easy to remember because each rule is only 2 words. So you got to remember 6 words. If you remember these 6 words, you'll be successful in anything you do in life. And so if you apply these 3 things to everything you do, and it's these 3 rules. Work smart. I used to say work hard, but the game is changing now. It's not about how hard you work. You do have to work hard, but you have to be strategic. You have to be smart. Twisted's case, it was smart for them to break off, form their own record label, and start doing their own thing. So you get 1, work smart. Second thing is be kind. I used to say be nice, but what I found is nice people don't always have boundaries. Kind people do. Be kind. And say what you will at Twisted. You don't know who they beef with. You really don't, for the most part. They go out there, they stay very positive, they keep their eyes forward, they move in their brand. So I really respect the fact that they honor those 2 things. Work smart, be kind. And the 3rd rule I always tell people, if you want to be successful in life, is give grace. I used to say the 3rd rule is no excuses, but that's a little too negative. It's about give grace. People F up. People make mistakes. You will make mistakes. Things won't always go your way, the way you want them to go. But give grace. And by give grace, it also means be gracious. So if you work smart and you be kind and you give grace, you're going to get to be where you want to go. Right on, man. Yeah, happy to help, right? and I think by and large, Twisted, make my life. Listen, I wouldn't put being a comic writer on anybody, my friend. So I wouldn't put it on you, man. It's a curse. But in all seriousness, I mean, that's what it comes down to. We all got to live by our own mantras, right? But I always, one of the reasons I've liked working with Twisted so much, and I've had so much respect for them, is because I think they embody a lot of that. Work smart, be kind, give grace. That's it. Everybody's got their own rules they got to follow. I don't care if you got 10, you got 3, you got 2, you got 1, whatever, man. But just try to move forward in a positive fashion. That's the key. That's it, man. When you're effing up, try to learn so you don't have down. That's it. You're going to make mistakes. Good gravy, man. I've been a published author for 22 years this February. You think I haven't made mistakes? You think I haven't screwed up? When I do my second Right or Wrong book, the first chapter is going to be every mistake I've made in my career to date. I already got it written. And the reason I say that I'm doing that is because when you're writing a book about making comics and you're writing a book, people think, oh, well, look at, he's just bragging. Look how successful he is. Look, man, social media is a perfect example. You only see what people put forward, what they want to see. You don't see the bad. All social media is performance art. Being a creative is performance art. No one wants to sit there and see me crying in my pillow, right? Because my goldfish caught on fire, just because I'm depressed, things aren't working out the way I want them to on the timeline they are, or whatever. But you gotta remind myself, just work smart, Dirk. Be kind, Dirk. Give grace, Dirk. And that way, no matter what you achieve or don't, you're doing the best you can. That's it, man. My grandfather said it best. My grandpa always said, you can't ask someone to do better than their best. And that's the other thing I think about. Every day I look back and like, did I do the best I could today? My best on Monday may not be best. What my best was last Friday or will be this Thursday. But am I doing my best that day? That's all you can do.
Yeah.
I mean to get all philosophical talking about comic books.
Oh no, you're good.
Sorry. I'll drink my firework bagel and shut up for a second. Sorry.
How much magnesium did he feed that fish?
I gave myself grace after it happened. I said, "Oh man, I shouldn't have done that, Mark. Poor Goldie."
For sure. Wrap it up here. It's almost an hour point. So
right on.
Maybe get you back sometime. Dive into some of your other stuff that you have sometime.
I would love that, man. I would love that. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. Like I said, it was cool to do one last podcast here before the big half century mark at the end of this Thursday. But no, I really appreciate the opportunity to bring me on, man, and talk about working with Twisted and just talk about making comics, talk about life. It's a real privilege to have these opportunities. I appreciate it. And I appreciate your flexibility in us getting this set up. No, seriously, very day to day. It does very day to day. That's it, man. You know, if you got to take a nap, take a nap. That's all right. You're one of the biggest misconceptions I think people have about creatives is that every moment of every day we have to be on. And the reason I say that is for a long time in my career, I suffered from that. I did not take time for myself. Right? I was grinding and hustling. I do everything myself. Well, not everything. I don't draw my own books, obviously, but like coordinating the art teams and all that stuff. But I've learned, in the last couple of years, especially, it's like, slow down. Take the time for the things that you want, the things that make you happy, the things that bring you joy, the things that you want. I'm so happy I've got over 20 graphic novels out. And I've got certain professional milestones that, universe willing, will be met. But you also got to take the time for what makes you happy. You got to take the time for things that give you joy, because
self-love.
If you don't have things that are bringing you joy, then what's the point? And don't get me wrong, for a long time, my joy was derived from putting out the books and grinding and going. But it's okay to stop and step back and take a nap, watch a movie, read a book, spend time with a loved one. Just make sure you have those things too. I'm a workaholic, man. I'm a workaholic, and I've really had to learn to kind of readjust that a little bit, right? Eat good food, eat some good ice cream or something like that. Go to that convention. That's the other thing I've learned too. We talk about conventions. If you get a chance to go meet someone at a convention and you really want to meet them, go. You really want to go see that band? Go.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. Have those opportunities while you can have them.
Absolutely. Go ahead and let everybody know where they can find all your stuff, platforms, and all that.
Totally, yeah. If you're watching this, and if you've watched this long, first, thank you. Go to dirkmanning.com. I have a little form on the front page. I send out a newsletter once a month, usually the first week of every month. I would encourage everyone, if you don't get that newsletter, it's once a month. I send you an email, like, here's the new books coming out. Here's what's going on. If you could sign up for that newsletter, dirkmanning.com, that'd be awesome. It's a good way to stay in touch. Other than that, I'm on social media at Dirk Manning. Look for the picture of the guy at the top hat and the scarf. Looks kind of like that guy right there. I'm on Blue Sky, Facebook, all that. Just add Dirk Manning. Look for the picture of the guy at the top hat and the scarf. And I'll be returning to the road this weekend. Celebrating my birthday weekend, going to the Monroe Oddities and Horror Fest up in Monroe, Michigan. Then I'm on the road from there, doing about 2 different appearances a month. So I'll be bouncing all over the Midwest. I'll be spending February in Michigan. March, I got 2 shows in Ohio. And then April.
That's not Midwest.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I'm holding down the Midwest pretty hard this year because I got 3 books coming out this year, things like that.
For me, that's like East Coast.
Well, like East Coast, I do New York Comic Con every year. I wanted to get back out to Seattle, the West Coast this year, maybe San Diego. We'll see how that works out. But if you're in the Midwest, you're gonna have plenty of opportunities to see me. But again, my full convention schedule is at dirkmanning.com. I think it's the worst kept secret. I'll be at Astronomicon again this year. They haven't announced me officially yet, but there you go. If you watch as long, I'll be at Astro. Of course, I've been there every year. Yeah, mine is ice cream. That's my jam. But yeah, dirkmanning.com is all the information. Social media at Dirk Manning. They can find me there. And like I said, throw your name on that newsletter list. And once a month we can stay in touch that way too. You'll know what's going on. I'm a magician with words. I get that all the time. People think I'm a magician because of the top hat and stuff and the all black. I know a couple card tricks. Maybe I'll bust out the card tricks I know again at conventions this year. I haven't practiced. I knew a couple of card tricks, but my magic is in the books and making. Here's my real magic trick. I'll tell you this. I get people to stare at very thinly sliced wood and hallucinate stories. Think about that. That deep.
That'll make you think.
Yep. I get people to stare at thinly sliced pieces of wood and hallucinate stories. That is magic.
You thought you were Dave. I thought you were the Family Guy, dude.
No, wait, not Peter Griffin, right? Seth MacFarlane or whatever. So, no, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you too.
I sincerely appreciate it. I sincerely appreciate all you hanging out, watching in the chat and stuff like that. I got a lot of love for you, for everybody sticking around. And again, hosting people on the road. If you've never checked out my work, come to a convention, pick up a graphic novel. You can get my books on Amazon and stuff like that as well. DirkManning.com has the full bibliography. If you haven't read Haunted Highlands yet, Curse of the Green Book, that second volume is out.
You left us on a cliffhanger, by the way.
I did. I know. Well, that's because I want to do that third one. Yeah. So we'll just stay tuned. Not my announcement to make, but here's the thing. I will tell you this: if the Earth swallows me tomorrow, and there's only Haunted Highlands Volume 1 and 2, you could look at without giving. How can I say without giving too much away? You could look at the end of Volume 2 as being the prequel to one of Twisted's music videos that carries the story on from there.
Okay.
And if you know the character, obviously, if you know the character at the end of Volume 2, think about the music video they're in and like how that moment can then lead to the music video featuring that character. So I'm very big on continuity. I'm very big on long-term storytelling, like I said. So I'll leave it at that.
Or giving like little subliminal messages.
So it's pretty sick, man.
Oh, I can't wait.
But thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. I appreciate you very much. Appreciate you all sticking around and hope to see you at Astronomicon. Or are you going to Astro, Lee?
I want to.
All right, cool. Hope
I want to bring the kids.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely, man. Have them come check everything out and stuff like that. But
yeah, they love Twisted probably more than I do, and that's crazy.
Get out and see them again. Treat yourself.
For sure.
You'll be the coolest dad of the year. So.
Right.
Well, thank you again for having me on. Thank you for watching. DirkManning.com is my website. Catch me on social media, Instagram, Blue Sky. God help me for now, even Twitter, Facebook at Dirk Manning. And appreciate you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. I will be in touch with you.
That was one nice one for you. Thanks all.